And on top of that, those students, we have also been threatened that if we are to violate another policy, we will be met with even more serious consequences, which can include potential permanent suspension from MIT. If we are being asked to suppress our emotion when faced with the slaughter and starvation of Palestinians at the dime of our government and with science and technology that could very well be coming from our institute, then that's not free expression. My name is Sophia Okundipe. I'm a senior at MIT studying chemical biological engineering. I'm also an organizer with the MIT Coalition Against Apartheid, and I serve on the steering committee for the broader Coalition for Palestine, which encompasses 14 different cultural and political organizations on MIT's campus. At MIT, the CAA was actually first founded in the mid-1980s. It was a coalition of students, alumni, faculty, and community members calling on MIT to divest from companies complicit in South African apartheid. And then 30 years later, in 2021, the organization was revived in the aftermath of the evictions and ethnic cleansing that we were seeing in Sheikh Jarrah, and the global movement that sort of arose surrounding it. And so the goals of the CAA, evolved to be in opposition to Israeli apartheid, in parallel to the South African struggle, but also expanding it to fight not just against the apartheid regime, but to fight against the Zionist occupation in its entirety as a settler colonial entity.
That is part and parcel of Israel's project of genocide and ethnic cleansing.
Since October 7th, we've organized protests on our campus, and we've also engaged in larger protests in the Boston area, as well as some of the national protests. One such protest that we had on our campus occurred on February 12th, 2024. The previous night, the occupation began bombing Rafah, and they ended up, killing some 100 people in the span of like 90 minutes. And in response, we decided to hold an emergency action to say, that the occupation to get its hands off of Rafah, and also to call on MIT to cut its ties with the IOF. And so we had that action the following day on Monday. We had over 100 people turn out with, less than 12 hours notice. Now the following day, the CAA received a notice letter from the administration saying that we were suspended for holding an unregistered protest. And on top of that, those students, we have also been threatened that if we are to violate another policy, we will be met with even more serious consequences, which can include potential permanent suspension from MIT. Less than 2 hours after we received our suspension letter, the president of MIT, Sally Kornbluth, released a video calling the CAA out by name, basically telling the world that we had been suspended. When she made that video, she didn't make that video to talk to us or to talk to the majority of the campus community. She's, attempting to capitulate to the Zionist pressure that she's been receiving, to show them some sort of tangible result, that she is in fact cracking down on us, so to speak. It's also something interesting to note is that, this repression, especially this sort of repression going through like disciplinary measures, it's not an MIT specific phenomenon. This is something that we're seeing across the country. We saw it, at Harvard. We've seen it locally at Tufts. We've seen it at Columbia. We've seen it at Rutgers, where Rutgers SJP, their SJP was suspended. Something interesting about MIT, a lot of these schools like MIT have, branded themselves as these, bastions of progress and change. They've tried to tout themselves as being supportive of free expression, of wanting to make the world a better place. If students are not afforded the right to assemble and organize ourselves in the response to an atrocity, if we are being asked to suppress our emotion when faced with the slaughter and starvation of Palestinians at the dime of our government and with science and technology that could very well be coming from our institute, then that's not free expression. We make MIT what it is, and we have a lot of power to enact change if we remain organized. Going forward, the CAA and other groups within the Coalition for Palestine, we will, as this genocide continues to go on, we will continue to echo the demands of the resistance and of the Palestinians who are on the ground suffering through this genocide. We will continue to call for a ceasefire, to call for the complete withdrawal of the occupation forces, to call for an end to the blockade, an end to the siege, an end to this forced starvation, to the forced displacement, to the targeting of homes, and more. As residents within the U.S., we will continue to pressure our government, which has fully funded and orchestrated this genocide, until there is a complete end to the occupation and a right to return for all of the Palestinians who have been displaced in Gaza, as well as all Palestinians who have been displaced since the establishment of the Zionist state. We always try to keep our siblings in Gaza in our hearts, who are facing this unprecedented level of brutality and starvation.